all her tresses, making a golden ladder to an iron heart. Whereupon the old woman mounted up quickly and ran into the garden, but when she found it all dug and sown, she was beside herself with amazement, for it seemed to her impossible that a delicate lad should have accomplished such hard labour. But the next morning, hardly had the sun gone out to warm himself on account of the cold he had caught in the river of India, than the ogress went down again, bidding Nardo Aniello take care that in the evening she should find ready split 6 stacks of wood which were in the cellar, with every log cleft into 4 pieces, or otherwise she would cut him up like bacon, and make a fry of him for supper. On hearing this decree, the poor prince had like to have died of terror, and Philidoro, seeing him half dead and pale as ashes, said, "Why, what a coward you are to be frightened at such a trifle!" "Do you think it a trifle," replied Nardo Aniello, "to split 6 stacks of wood, with every log cleft into 4 pieces, between this time and the evening? Alas, I shall sooner be cleft in halves myself, to fill the mouth of this horrid old woman." "Fear not," answered Philidoro, "for without giving yourself any trouble, the wood shall all be split in good time. But meanwhile cheer up, if you love me, and do not split my heart with such lamentations." Now when the sun had shut up the shop of his rays, in order not to sell light to the shades, the old woman returned, and, bidding Philidoro let down the usual ladder, she ascended, and finding the wood already split, she began to suspect it was her own daughter who had given her this check. At the 3rd day, in order to make a 3rd trial, she told the prince to clean out for her a cistern which held 1,000 casks of water, for she wished to fill it anew, adding that if the task were not finished by the evening, she would make mincemeat of him. When the old woman went away, Nardo Aniello began again to weep and wail, and Philidoro, seeing that the labours increased, and that the old woman had something of the brute in her to burden the poor fellow with such tasks and troubles, said to him, "Be quiet, and as soon as the moment has passed that interrupts my art, before the sun says I am off, we will say good-bye to this house. Sure enough, this evening my mother shall find the land cleared, and I will go off with you, alive or dead." The prince, on hearing this news, embraced Philidoro and said, "Thou art the pole star of this storm-tossed bark, my soul. Thou art the prop of my hopes." Now when the evening drew nigh, Philidoro having dug a hole in the garden into a large underground passage, they went out and took the way to Naples. But when they arrived at the grotto of Pozzuolo, Nardo Aniello said to Philidoro, "It will never do for me to take you to the palace on foot and dressed in this manner. Therefore wait at this inn, and I will soon return with horses, carriages, servants, and clothes." So Philidoro stayed behind, and the prince went on his way to the city. Meantime the ogress returned home, and as Philidoro did not answer to her usual summons, she grew suspicious, ran into the wood, and cutting a great long pole, placed it against the window, and climbed up like a cat. Then she went into the house, and hunted everywhere inside and out, high and low, but found no one. At last she perceived the hole, and seeing that it led into the open air, in her rage she did not leave a hair upon her head, cursing her daughter and the prince, and praying that at the first kiss Philidoro's lover should receive, he might forget her. But let us leave the old woman to say her wicked curses, and return to the prince, who on arriving at the palace, where he was thought to be dead, put the whole house in an uproar, every one running to meet him, and crying, "Welcome, welcome! Here he is, safe and sound! How happy we are to see him back in this country!" with 1,000 other words of affection. But as he was going up the stairs, his mother met him half-way, and embraced and kissed him, saying, "My son, my jewel, the apple of my eye, where have you been, and why have you stayed away so long to make us all die with anxiety?" The prince knew not what to answer, for he did not wish to tell her of his misfortunes. But no sooner had his mother kissed him than, owing to the curse, all that had passed went from his memory. Then the queen told her son that to put an end to his going hunting and wasting his time in the woods, she wished him to get married. "Well and good," replied the prince. "I am ready and prepared to do what you desire." So it was settled that within 4 days they should lead home to him the bride who had just arrived from the country of Flanders, and thereupon a great feasting and banquets were held. But meanwhile Philidoro, seeing that her husband stayed away so long, and hearing, I know not how, of the feast, waited in the evening till the servant lad of the inn had gone to bed, and taking his clothes from the head of the bed, she left her own in their place, and disguising herself like a man, went to the court of the king, where the cooks, being in want of help, took her as kitchen boy. When the tables were set out and the guests all took their seats, and the dishes were set down, and the carver was cutting up a large English pie, which Philidoro had made with her own hands, lo, out flew such a beautiful dove, that the guests in their astonishment, forgetting to eat, fell to admiring the pretty bird, which said to the prince in a piteous voice, "Have you so soon forgotten the love of Philidoro, and have all the services you received from her, ungrateful man, gone from your memory? Is it thus you repay the benefits she has done you, she who took you out of the claws of the ogress and gave you life, and herself too? Woe to the woman who trusts too much to the words of man, who ever requites kindness with ingratitude, and pays debts with forgetfulness. But go, forget your promises, false man, and may the curses follow you which the unhappy maiden sends you from the bottom of her heart. But if the gods have not locked up their ears, they will witness the wrong you have done her, and when you least expect it, the lightning and thunder, fever and illness will come to you. Enough, eat and drink, take your sports, for unhappy Philidoro, deceived and forsaken, will leave you the field open to make merry with your new wife." So saying, the dove flew away quickly and vanished like the wind. The prince, hearing the murmuring of the dove, stood for a while stupefied. At length he inquired whence the pie came, and when the carver told him that a scullion boy who had been taken to assist in the kitchen had made it, he ordered him to be brought into the room. Then Philidoro, throwing herself at the feet of Nardo Aniello, shedding a torrent of tears, said merely, "What have I done to you?" Whereupon the prince at once recalled to mind the engagement he had made with her, and, instantly raising her up, seated her by his side, and when he related to his mother the great obligation he was under to this beautiful maiden, and all that she had done for him, and how it was necessary that the promise he had given should be fulfilled, his mother, who had no other joy in life than her son, said to him, "Do as you please, so that you offend not this lady whom I have given you to wife." "Be not troubled," said the lady, "for to tell the truth, I am very loath to remain in this country. With your kind permission, I wish to return to my dear Flanders." Thereupon the prince with great joy offered her a vessel and attendants, and, ordering Philidoro to be dressed like a princess, when the tables were removed, the musicians came and they began the ball which lasted until evening. So the feast being now ended, they all betook themselves to rest, and the prince and Philidoro lived happily ever after, proving the truth of the proverb that he who stumbles and does not fall is helped on his way like a rolling ball. End of chapter 16.